Hi, it's Brian Lambert with Orchestrate Sales, and I want to talk to you about the Action Lab and invite you to participate. What are we doing in the Action Lab? Well, we're creating an emergence room. I think there's a lot of people in the emergency room and enablement and having to respond and react to a lot of inputs. It's a complex time. There's a lot of ambiguity, a lot of fire drills to put out. That is not what we're trying to figure out how to tackle specifically and respond to all that. We're trying to get in front of that. We're trying to go to root cause. Why is this fire drill happening? Why are we in a fire drill type of situation? What are the root cause elements that are creating this? And how do we get better as leaders in the business, as orchestrators? And we explore what it means to be an orchestrator, to tackle root cause and to lead by example across the commercial system. Do that, we focus on orchestrating. We don't want to proliferate the activity driven, fire drill driven. While there's some value in responding like that, what we believe is the value is in the long term of orchestrating across the commercial system. We believe in the power of the system, the interconnected moving parts of the ecosystem, and we want to help you navigate that. As somebody who's explored systems thinking and design thinking, I can tell you this is easier said than done. It's a journey, and that's what we want to model here at Orchestrate Sales is, as a leader in the business, how do we impact that ecosystem by providing services? Not just being customer service oriented and being nice to people. We're talking about what are the enablement services we provide? What is a service? We also talk about what it means to address the ecosystem that salespeople operate within. We do not believe salespeople are broken. They don't need to be fixed. Much of enablement and much of the help they get is about telling them what to do. And we believe salespeople are smart and they can be equipped and enabled. We don't want to control them. We don't want to tell them what to do. They're not broken. So what does that look like? Well, it means fixing and addressing the environment that they're within, not the interpersonal relationships between them and their manager, but the value communication system that is supposed to be supporting their conversations. We believe that enablement is a function, not a skill, not just a role, but an actual function, a business unit eventually, maybe even down the road having its own P&L, and we want to help get there. To do that, we believe it's a business within a business. We explain what that means in our courses, but it's this idea that we understand how to be programmatic and disciplined about what we're doing in order to drive impact in a very specific way that executives want to fund. And that enablement is a role that must partner up and down the organization, and more importantly, across the organization, partnering with and doing with sales, not doing to sales, doing with marketing and product, figuring out how to create synergy, bring things together in order to simplify. This is the challenge of being an orchestrator. We run counter to, and we want to fight the idea that it's about more. What if things were not about more? What if it was about the idea of quality and removing things? And how would we do that as orchestrators? So we want to practice that. And to practice that, we wade into the complexity that exists. Scott Santucci and his team at Growth Enablement put together a lot of slides that we use to explain the why enablement is an orchestrating role and why it's important to think about how we impact the ecosystem to simplify for sales. Here's one of those visuals. On the left is your company, and on the right is your customers, your company's customers. Who's in the middle? It's salespeople and even customer-facing employees that have to communicate the value of your capabilities. There's a lot of change that's happening in your own company, a lot of complexity. And there's a lot of change in complexity and ambiguity on the customer side. It's not just about positioning a solution. It's helping drive change in the customer's environment. And salespeople have to be able to navigate that. So what does that look like and how does that work? Well, that's what we want to explore in our action labs and start figuring that out. To do that, we need to practice what that looks like. And that's the environment we try to create. I don't want to necessarily, I don't want you to go practice on your executives. I'd rather you practice at Orchestrate Sales. And that's what I do. One of the things that Scott put out in his webinar in early 2021 was the evolution of enablement to tackle what he coined as productitis. And boy, is productitis rampant in today's SaaS-driven, platform-driven companies that believe that the product sells itself in many ways, and that the technology will help illuminate what needs to happen in the buying organization, right? And that evolution of technology and capabilities hasn't necessarily translated into ongoing business impact and transformational change in clients, in customers. So while enablement has grown over the years, much of that growth and enablement has been fueled by the lack of travel and a lot of travel budgets diverting to enablement. What happens when the travel budgets come back? How do we talk about and how do we explain the impact of enablement and the business case for enablement to, in this case, to fight productitis? Why does productitis matter? Well, if you think about all of the product materials, all of the content, all of the internal complexity that salespeople have to navigate, there's really three ways to tackle it. And Scott shared that in the webinar that he put together. And it was option one, all that complexity ends up in the lap or at the desk of customers, and they have to figure it out. This idea of showing up and throwing up, if you will. And if salespeople are doing that, they push the complexity on to their customers. Some salespeople are engaging in a heroic effort. They are trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out how to lasso all that complexity, and they figure it out, and they're able to make it work and communicate that value, but that's not scalable. The only way to scale this is to tackle the complexity at the source, much like a river. What's easier to control? A river at the ocean or a river at the source? In this case, that's the analogy. We want to build an approach that makes it easier for salespeople to sell, frees them up. But as you know, in sales and marketing, there are so many opinions, so many perspectives, so many options, and so much inertia around doing things that that's a tough conversation to have. And that's what we want to model in our action labs. An example of that is helping communicate value. While everybody would agree that communicating value is important, how does it actually work? How would you answer that? How would it actually work? And then how do you bring people together who have different perspectives? To some, communicating value means skills, and those salespeople need to have skills. To others, it means message. It means we need to have the right branding and the right message, and salespeople can deliver that. To others, it means focus on the customer. I find that that's actually very few and far between, and what that means isn't very clear. But that's another component, is what do customers think? What do customers need? What's that audience? And this is a simple framework, again, built by Scott, and how he thinks about aligning what he calls message enablement to create a route to value based on aligning the message and the messenger to the right type of audience. What this means is not all audiences are the same, not all messengers are the same, and not all messages are the same. And so there are those variables that creates an opportunity for enablement to simplify based on patterns and create that dialogue to help salespeople have the right type of conversation. So that's a lot to figure out, right? That's a complex challenge, and that cannot be just solved simply. And so we've built the Action Lab to think about components of these types of challenges where it's so complex that we have to develop techniques and approaches to really move the needle. So what do we mean by moving the needle? At Orchestrate Sales, we're using this North Star vision, which was created by Scott and his team, as well as a venture capital company called TCV, And many of the companies that you know of, such as Uber and Airbnb, have been funded by TCV. TCV has rolled out a commercial ratio to all of its portfolio companies, where executives are expected to not only understand that sales and marketing drive growth, but they have a co-accountability to drive growth. The commercial ratio shows for every dollar or every euro spent on sales and marketing, the executives and investors expect to get a dollar or a euro back in growth. In other words, shouldn't sales and marketing drive growth? And that commercial ratio looks at that. And for most companies, they are not driving growth. It's a black hole. Sales and marketing is a huge investment that doesn't drive growth. What's up with that? This is the challenge of enablement and moving into it. And as you can tell in something like this, it's bigger than just one person. There are a lot of perspectives. There are a lot of options. There are a lot of decisions. There's a lot of networking that needs to be done to help people see what we're even talking about. There's a lot of techniques and procedures, and you have to be disciplined and structured in order to tackle that. And that's what we want to work on at Orchestrate Sales. So to do that, we call it orchestrating. Orchestrators connect the dots. We put out with Scott the attributes of an orchestrator. And this is what it means to be an orchestrator. You and I will both need to learn about what this actually means. The more I explore it, the more it's revealed. The more I try to do it, the more I realize how hard it is. I'm trying to orchestrate Sales with other orchestrators. And yeah, that's not easy. And I'm learning a lot in the process about these 6 attributes. Why don't you take a minute, pause the video and read through these and reflect. What do these mean to you? What's the value of this in your own organization? What's the value of this in your own professional career? What if you can do that? So pause the video real quick, read through these. What do you think? All right, welcome back. So what is all this built on? Well, it's built on what we learned in the Sales Enablement Society. Scott in 2017 embarked on a journey, and he leaned into this idea that it's an interconnected, ecosystem-driven, platform-driven, experience-driven economy, and built the Sales Enablement Society that way. I was involved super early. I was at the first networking meeting and also the first meeting in the Palm Beach. And one of the things that I saw happening was this fast inertia that was established from taking action and everybody plugging in, if you will, with their own perspective. And because we're all human, a sense of collaboration and community was established that really drove an impact. 7,000 members, 50 chapters, 40 countries. And as somebody on the ground floor of that, I was one of the first founding members. I was on the first board. I was within the first 4 people that started this thing. What I saw was this idea take hold, and people grabbed onto it. And I learned a lot in that process of how to actually drive engagement, how to drive adoption, how to use technology, how to get people the information they needed, how to use LinkedIn, all of these things that we want to do in our own companies, right? This is what you would love to be able to do, right? How would you like to roll out an initiative that everybody volunteers to participate in? How would that work for you? And that's the idea of orchestrating. So we're building off of what we learned in the SCS. We're evolving that to lay the foundation for what it means to connect these dots and skate ahead to an ecosystem-driven world. I know there's a lot of buzz and enablement right now. Yes, enablement's on fire, but you have to wonder why. When you look at it, there's a huge perceived value of enablement, yes, but there's also a lot of available money because travel budgets are not here. What I want to do is I want to think ahead, and I want to think about what happens when travel comes back. How is the enablement function aligned to be agile, to be dot connecting, to support the go-to-market, and what types of skills and mindset and frameworks and tools and techniques do enablement leaders need in order to drive that value? And that's what we're doing at Orchestrate Sales, is we're figuring that out together. In the first meeting in Palm Beach, we established in the Sales Enablement Society that the vision for enablement leaders was to become eventually a VP of sales productivity. And I'm still committed to that vision. I want to help people who are participating in Orchestrate Sales become VPs of sales productivity. And there's a long way to go to get there. But that means we've got to think about not only why we're here, but what we're trying to achieve for sales. And what it means to sell today is rapidly evolving. We oftentimes want to control what we can control, for example, but what if you cannot control it? Now what? Most of the sales managers that you work with believe that they can only control what they can control. So what happens when the situation that they find themselves in is not controllable? How do we help them not only have the effectiveness of doing things well, but the efficiency that they need, which is to do things fast? And when you think about productivity, this blend of efficient and effective, that's what all sales managers want. So how do we help them, enable them to be successful? And it's not by telling them what to do and controlling their every move. It's about creating an environment for them to be successful. And that environment requires design, it requires alignment and purpose and intent. And how do we influence that as orchestrators when everybody does not report into us? There's so much power in the org chart. And as an enablement orchestrator, one of the things you'll quickly realize is that our value is in cutting across organizational silos, but oftentimes that means we don't have the bandwidth or the mind share. And how do we get it? How do we activate that? So these are things that we'll tackle in the Action Lab. And what we want to do is we want to create an environment where we can all contribute to a specific situation. We can share each other's perspective and then try to build something with that. We also want to create an environment where people can ask their questions and figure out what to do to move forward. Because the opposite of control is enablement. This is from Ori Brofman, who wrote The Chaos Imperative. And that was a book that Scott used to help inform the Sales Enablement Society. And that was a book I gave him back in the day when he was first starting this networking group, because I was amazed at how the bureaucracy of the military could be reconformed or reshaped into something that's agile and adaptive. And they talk about what it takes to change institutions from within in this book, The Chaos Imperative. That's Ori Brofman. And it starts with meetings like this. In the book, they talk about these types of meetings that we're talking about here in the Action Lab, and figuring out how do we leverage perspectives, bring those perspectives together and create something new together. So I look forward to seeing you in our Action Lab. I look forward to learning your perspective and learning together as we figure out what it means to orchestrate sales. All right, talk to you later.